Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Zhang. Here's a preview of some of today's top stories. Anti-Israeli rioters descend upon an airport in Russia, breaking into buildings and clashing with the police. At least 60 were arrested. Hamas terrorists released a new video of a hostage, what she says directly addressing Israel's prime minister, and why he calls it cruel propaganda. Released on a $4 million bond, the man charged with killing 4 Pepperdine University students pleads not guilty. Hundreds of anti-Israel protesters stormed an airport in Russia's predominantly Muslim Dagestan region on Sunday. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the incident, which resulted in at least 60 arrests and the injury of 9 police officers.
The riot was sparked by reports of a plane from Israel arriving at the airport. The flight from Tel Aviv was quickly surrounded by an angry mob upon landing. On the tarmac, some rioters reportedly tried breaking into the plane. Here a suspect is surrounded by the mob. His alleged crime? Being Jewish. He says he's from Uzbekistan, but they don't believe him. They say he must wait until they make a decision on whether he is free to go. One mob member yells to get his phone. Here, the enraged mob storms into the terminal building, carrying Palestinian flags, screaming Allahu Akbar. The halls are soon flooded as cries of God is the greatest continue. The enraged mob searches for Jewish people. They begin pulling doors open, frantic in their search. A woman seems to tell them that what they're looking for is not behind her door. Outside, the frenzied mob tries to flip over a police car. Here, a crowd gathers outside a hotel after a Jewish man checked into it, reportedly shouting, "Show your face, or we will come into the hotel and pull you out of there." Security forces closed the airport and removed the rioters. 20 people were injured during the riot before Makhachkala Airport was back under control. Security forces say the passengers on the plane were safe. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Earlier today, Dagestan airport reopened and Russian President Vladimir Putin accused the U.S. and Ukraine of engineering the riot. Putin's Monday accusations come without evidence, but added that Russia would now be investigating the incident. The hostage situation in the Middle East takes a disturbing turn. In the video, a hostage is seen pleading for help, directly addressing Israel's prime minister. His response is decisive, signaling Hamas tactics won't work. NTD's Jason Perry has the latest.
On Monday, Hamas terrorists released a chilling video of 3 hostages. The woman in the middle addressed her message to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
ביבי נתניהו שלום. אתמול הייתה מסיבת עיתונאים עם משפחות החטופים. אנחנו יודעים שהייתה אמורה להיות הפסקת אש, היית אמור לשחרר את כולנו, התחייבת לשחרר את כולנו, ובמקום זה אנחנו נושאים במחדל הפוליטי, ביטחוני, צבאי. תן לנו לחזור למשפחות שלנו עכשיו!
Netanyahu later addressed the situation.
I want to make clear Israel's position regarding a ceasefire. Just as the United States would not agree to a ceasefire after the bombing of Pearl Harbor or after the terrorist attack of 9/11, Israel will not agree to a cessation of hostilities with Hamas after the horrific attacks of October 7th. Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen.
Netanyahu also released a statement on X saying the video is cruel psychological propaganda. But a grandson of a hostage in Hamas captivity sees the video in a positive
light. It
light.
gives us a lot of hope to see that they're still alive. We haven't given up on them yet. We know they're alive and we're going to do anything we can to bring them back.
He stood in front of more than 200 empty beds set up to symbolize the men, women, and children held captive by Hamas. Many of them were taken hostage during a surprise attack in which Hamas terrorists murdered over 1,400 innocent civilians in Israel. Since then, Israel has vowed to defeat the Hamas terrorist group to ensure such an attack will never happen again. Also on Monday, the Israeli military released footage of its recent ground operations. Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson Daniel Hagari explained part of their strategy.
We move on the ground, identify the terrorists, and attack from the air. Ground forces are also directly engaging terrorists. The fighting is being carried out in the Gaza Strip.
And he further explained that their ground operations also aim to free the hostages and return them home. On Monday, Israel said its forces rescued an Israeli soldier from Hamas captivity during the ground offensive. She was captured back in Israel on October 7th, and since being free, she has undergone medical checks and is doing well. Jason Perry, NTD News.
As of Monday, the IDF has updated the number of hostages held captive by Hamas in Gaza to 239. Now let's take a look at other top national headlines today. The suspect in the shooting rampage that left 18 people dead and 13 others wounded at a restaurant and a bowling alley was found dead Friday evening after a 2-day manhunt. Authorities said Robert Card was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in a box trailer by a recycling center. Residents of Lewiston, Maine, a city of 40,000, came together to honor the victims. Over 1,000 people came out to pay tribute. Christian, Jewish, and Muslim leaders spoke, reflecting the diversity of this small town.
Remember to seek healing over relief. They're two different things. Relief is temporary. Healing is permanent. Pain is temporary. Healing is permanent.
House Speaker Mike Johnson said on Sunday he expects floor action this week to advance the standalone funding bill to support Israel. The move comes despite President Biden pushing for an Israel-Ukraine combined aid package.
We believe that that is a pressing and urgent need. There are lots of things going on around the world that we have to address, and we will. But right now, what's happening in Israel takes the immediate attention, and I think we've got to separate that and get it through. I believe there'll be bipartisan support for that, and I'm going to push very hard for it.
Biden has called on Congress to approve his $100 billion aid package, but the bulk of the money would bolster Ukraine's defenses against Russia. The rest will be split among Israel, the Indo-Pacific region, and immigration enforcement along the U.S.-Mexico border. Johnson says bolstering support for Israel should top the national security agenda. Former Vice President Mike Pence ended his cash-strapped presidential campaign over the weekend. Pence's surprise announcement at the Republican Jewish Coalition Donor Conference in Las Vegas made him the first big-name candidate to drop out. A recent report showed that Pence's campaign wasn't able to raise enough from donors and was struggling with debt. Pence didn't endorse anyone in his speech, but he did call on Republicans to choose a standard bearer that would, quote, appeal to the better angels of our nature. Now to California, where a Malibu man who was charged with the tragic killing of 4 Pepperdine University students has been released on bond. NTD's Christina Corona has more on the update.
Fraser Michael Boehm, the 22-year-old driver who was accused of fatally striking 4 Pepperdine University students, has been granted release on $4 million bond following his plea of not guilty to murder charges Friday. Boehm was arrested on October 24th and charged with 4 counts of murder for the deaths of Neve Rolston, Peyton Stewart, Asha Weir, and Deslyn Williams, after allegedly losing control of his red BMW along the Pacific Coast Highway. Boehm pleaded not guilty in court on Wednesday and had his bail lowered from $8 million to $4 million. Michael Kraut, Fraser Boehm's defense attorney, claims that Boehm was involved in a road rage incident that started at Duke's Malibu, a popular bar and restaurant near the crash site. Kraut says they have security footage to support their claims and suggests that authorities may have arrested the wrong person. A Malibu resident told NTD, Fraser is a really good kid and is very well known in this community. His parents bought him a BMW when he was 21, and unfortunately, this happened. Boehm's family mansion, worth $8,795,000, features panoramic ocean views and is located in the exclusive Big Rock area of Malibu. He attended Oaks Christian High School, a private school near Los Angeles, with an annual tuition cost of about $31,000, where he was on the baseball team before graduating in 2020. Investigators have determined that Boehm was not under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time of the crash. Boehm could face potential multiple life prison sentences if convicted as charged. Christina Corona, NTD News, Malibu.
We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. Fans set up a memorial for Emmy-nominated Friends star Matthew Perry. The actor was found dead over the weekend. Pumpkins, an iconic symbol of fall, but across the Western United States, some farmers struggle with this year's crop. We'll have more on the cause. The San Francisco 49ers suffer 3 straight losses, and SoFi Stadium might drop out of the 2026 World Cup. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Zhang. The Emmy-nominated Friends star found dead in his home at age 54. A memorial has been set up at his California home. NTD's Stephanie Sikal hears more from his fans.
Matthew Perry, the beloved actor known for his role as the witty Chandler Bing TV series Friends, tragically passed away on Saturday due to what seems to be a drowning incident in a hot tub at his Los Angeles residence right behind me. He was 54 years old.
Pay tribute to Matthew, a fan of the show, watched it for many years, and very saddened to hear of the death that we heard on Saturday. His sense of humor, I think he had a really good sense of humor, very good actor, down to earth.
Matthew Perry expressed his strong desire to be remembered more for his efforts in helping people overcome addiction than for his role in Friends. He subsequently transformed his former residence in Malibu into a sober living facility known as the Perry House, which operated until 2015. Despite his own struggles with alcohol and drug abuse, he was open about his journey to recovery and his efforts to help others. He hoped that this contribution to addiction support would be his primary legacy rather than his acting career. Perry's candidness about his struggles, as detailed in his memoir, sheds light on his journey throughout mental health and addiction challenges. Stephanie Sikal, NTD News, California.
Farmers in parts of the Western U.S. are struggling to grow pumpkins due to drought. They take a loss on top of other challenges like labor cost and inflation.
Some pumpkin farmers in the West, particularly wholesalers in places like Colorado and New Mexico, are feeling the pinching effects of drought.
We found out pretty early in the year that our reservoir supplies were pretty low, and we were only going to get about half the water we normally get on a normal year.
Farmers have had to rely on dwindling groundwater for irrigation while battling wacky weather to get their crops planted on time. Some have to cut back on other crops they grow because pumpkins bring in the most money, while others have described lower yields of smaller gourds.
Everything's a money game. You know, I don't want to put money in and not get a return on it. So I had made the decision right off the bat to plant half, probably 60% of what I normally would do, just in case I would have to irrigate up if it was a hotter summer. I mean, at that time, predictions were not too good. We're pretty bleak. Our summer was looking very bleak in March and April and even May.
Issues in the West are a reminder that all crops suffer when water becomes more scarce, and that other challenges, like labor and inflation, are stymieing farmers across the board, resulting in higher prices at the grocery store or pumpkin patch.
Overall economy, everything has increased in terms of inputs for our producers. You know, fuel has increased, what it costs for labor has increased. Our farmers struggle having enough people to work the fields and to drive the tractors and all, not just pumpkins, all of our crops. And so it's just an ongoing challenge, which it is with all businesses right now.
Still, pumpkins in major producing places like Illinois are doing okay.
A Southwest Airlines pilot surprises passengers on board by introducing a cabin crew family. All family members are working or had worked for Southwest Airlines.
A heartwarming video captured a special moment on board a Boeing 737 Southwest flight. The pilot introduced the cabin crew, who all happened to be family. First up, the mother, Angel, who has been working for the airline for the last 27 years. Then Angel was joined by her two daughters, Kaleko and Jessica. They were both on their first day of work, fulfilling their childhood dream of becoming cabin crew. To make the moment even more special, the pilot introduced Angel's husband, Greg. He is a retired pilot with Southwest Airlines. Greg had trained the current pilot years ago. A Southwest Airlines spokesperson revealed that Greg and Angel had met 24 years ago on Southwest Airlines and were celebrating their 22nd anniversary that day. The touching video was shared on the airline's Instagram page and garnered over 50,000 reactions and many supportive comments.
Now let's change gears to sports. Let's go to Carlos Reyes for the update. Carlos, some exciting games this past weekend in the NFL. Did any team catch your eye?
Well, yeah, David, it's the 49ers, and unfortunately for all the wrong reasons. You talk about a team that started 5-0 and was considered one of the best in many power rankings across the league, and they just haven't been able to click these past couple of games. Since then, they have suffered two heartbreaking losses on the road, with the latest loss occurring at home, where they had carried an 11-game home winning streak coming into the game. To top it off, this loss happened in front of 120 former 49ers who had gathered to celebrate past Super Bowl victories against the Bengals, so just to add insult to injury, it couldn't get worse.
Is there any solution to this recent decline in form for the 49ers?
So yeah, David, we talk about the trade deadline coming up this Tuesday. The 49ers could solve a lot of their current issues with another good cornerback. Part of the reason their defense is struggling is because their pass rush is consistently a step or a half a step late getting into the quarterback. If their secondary could force a signal caller to even hesitate by half a second, it would dramatically help one of the most expensive defensive lines in the NFL. Some players that immediately come to mind are Denver's Jalen Johnson and Patrick Surtain. Both are proven cornerbacks that have shined amidst a lackluster Broncos this season. On the other hand, we've mentioned how the defensive line is lacking that explosiveness and success that it's been known for. Carolina Panthers linebacker Brian Burns could serve as the remedy for a struggling 49ers defense that hasn't been able to attack the quarterback consistently.
So speaking of football, the NFL's most modern stadium, SoFi Stadium, home of the Rams and Chargers, could drop out of the 2026 World Cup. Are there any stadiums in Los Angeles that could serve as a substitute?
Yeah, so David, first of all, heartbreaking for the people of LA. I mean, having looked forward to a World Cup for so long, since the last time it was hosted in 1994, having looked forward to that and then having the possibility of that being snagged underneath your feet is just truly heartbreaking. The Rose Bowl immediately comes to mind when we're talking about venues that have that historical value. Having hosted the 1994 Men's World Cup and the Women's 99 World Cup, it serves as a true contender. The LA Coliseum also serves as a serious contender with that Olympic history. But a dark horse in the running is also Las Vegas's Allegiant Stadium. Many talked about its availability for the World Cup and it not being able to meet deadlines. Well, it seems that now it has that golden opportunity to be able to host one of the world's most famous sports.
All right, Carlos, thank you for the update.
No problem, David. Thank you.
And a fun story to wrap up the night. An aquarium in Southern California welcomed a rare emperor penguin chick. It's the first in over a decade.
SeaWorld San Diego is celebrating the birth of a female emperor penguin chick for the first time since 2010.
They're so rare outside of the Antarctic. We're the only facility in North America that cares for them, and this is a once-in-a-decade event for our team.
According to the October 25th announcement, the chick was born on September 12th. It initially had trouble breaking out of her thick shell, which staff later realized was due to a beak malformation.
Emperor penguin eggs have a very thick shell to help them survive in the cold, harsh climates that they're found in. But that also means that the chick has to use a lot of energy to get through that shell initially.
After several days observing her progress, staff made a small hole in the egg to help things along, and the chick made her debut into the world. SeaWorld San Diego houses 17 emperor penguins and says it is the only place in the Western Hemisphere outside of Antarctica where people can see the rare birds. The U.S. is finalizing protections for Antarctica's emperor penguin under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recently said the animal is at risk of extinction due to rising temperatures and sea ice loss.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We would like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.